What if I told you that everything you know about the Tower of Babel is incomplete? Archaeologists found an ancient tablet in the Iraqi desert that reveals details so disturbing about this construction that challenge the sky itself that you won't be able to stop watching until the end. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to discover will completely shake your understanding of one of the most mysterious events in human history. And I challenge you to watch this complete video until the last revelation, because each second contains information that will forever change the way you see human pride and its devastating consequences. Imagine a civilization so technologically advanced that it managed to erect a structure 91 meters high, equivalent to a modern 30-story building, more than 4,000 years ago, without cranes, tractors, or any heavy machinery. The Tower of Babel was not just any construction lost in the dusty pages of ancient history, but a monument to human ambition that reached such monumental proportions that it provoked the direct intervention of God in human history. Recent archaeological discoveries in the plains of Shinar, present-day Iraq, revealed not only the physical foundations of this monumental tower, but also impressive fragments of the daily life of a people who shared a single language and a common purpose. The Bible relates in Genesis chapter 11 that the whole earth had one language and the same words, a unique linguistic phenomenon that allowed unprecedented social coordination and organization, hiding a devastating power to mobilize thousands of people around an objective that directly confronted the divine plan for humanity. The engineering techniques employed in the construction challenge our understanding of the capabilities of ancient civilizations, with the sacred text precisely describing how they made completely burned bricks using bitumen as mortar, a description that perfectly coincides with archaeological evidence of bricks baked in special ovens at extremely high temperatures. The society that built this tower was a complex and stratified civilization, where each individual played a crucial role, from the king at the top of the hierarchical pyramid, considered a bridge between the divine and the earthly, to a sophisticated network of priests, specialized scribes, meticulous administrators, and supervisors who controlled every aspect of production. Clay tablets reveal detailed records of payments, work shifts, distribution of food resources, and punishment systems, demonstrating a level of urban planning and human resource management that rivals much more modern societies. The motivation behind the construction of this tower reveals something deeply disturbing about human nature and our tendency toward excessive pride. The biblical text exposes with crystal clarity the true intention of that people when it declares, "Let us build a city with a tower that reaches the heavens. Thus our name will be famous and we will not be scattered across the face of the earth." Here lies the heart of the matter. It was not simply about an impressive architectural work or a religious temple dedicated to worship, but rather a colossal monument to the human ego, a public declaration of independence against the Creator himself, a bold attempt to establish a name and reputation that would transcend generations without needing to depend on God or follow his divine commandments.
Daily life in ancient Babel was an impressive reflection of this unbridled collective ambition. The sound of ovens burning bricks echoed across the plains from dawn to dusk, while thousands of workers moved like organized ants in a gigantic anthill, each executing their specific function with mechanical precision. The potters molded clay mixed with straw into standardized forms. The transporters formed endless human chains carrying heavy materials under the scorching Mesopotamian sun. The specialized builders decisioned each brick with meticulous care, following complex architectural projects, and the artisans created elaborate ornaments that decorated the multiple levels of the rising tower. This massive coordination of human efforts was only possible thanks to the common language that everyone shared, allowing instantaneous and perfect communication among all involved in the megalomaniacal project. The structures known as ziggurats, typical of the Mesopotamian region, served as architectural models for the Tower of Babel. These stepped pyramidal constructions could reach vertiginous heights, with multiple floors connected by elaborate ramps and steep staircases that serpentined through the structure. Archaeological evidence suggests that some of these monumental towers possessed up to 7 distinct levels, each smaller than the previous one, creating a silhouette that rose majestically against the desert horizon. But these were not simply impressive constructions destined to demonstrate political or military power. They were physical manifestations of a worldview that believed it could create a bridge between heaven and earth through human effort, without need for divine mediation or spiritual submission. The social complexity of Babel extended far beyond the construction sites and revealed surprising layers of organization that few know about. The women of this ancient society played fundamental roles that were systematically ignored by traditional historical narratives. Recent archaeological discoveries through deciphered cuneiform tablets showed that Babylonian women administered extensive properties, actively participated in complex commercial transactions, managed large-scale food distribution systems, and even occupied prestigious positions as priestesses in the temples that dotted the urban landscape. While men sweated under the sun carrying bricks and building the increasingly higher levels of the tower, women literally and figuratively wove the social fabric that kept that civilization functioning like a well-oiled machine. They processed enormous quantities of wool to produce the garments of thousands of workers, developed sophisticated food preservation techniques that allowed feeding a dense urban population, and preserved cultural traditions through oral transmission that shaped the collective identity of that people. In the imposing temples that dominated Babel's urban landscape, priestesses performed elaborate rituals dedicated to deities like Marduk, the city's main protective god, interpreted omens through the observation of natural phenomena and viscera of sacrificed animals, and kept alive a spiritual tradition that ironically fed the same pride that was leading that civilization to inevitable collapse. Babylonian religiosity was intense and multifaceted, with every aspect of daily life permeated by ritual practices and beliefs in multiple deities that supposedly controlled different spheres of human existence. This complex religious tapestry created a false sense of spiritual connection while simultaneously distancing the people from the true God who had created the heavens and the earth. Women, just like men, were completely immersed in this culture of self-sufficiency and collective pride that characterized Babel, competing for social status and recognition within a hierarchy that valued power, influence, and proximity to the centers of religious and political authority.
The people's food was based mainly on grains like barley and wheat cultivated in the fertile plains, irrigated by an ingenious system of canals that diverted water from the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These irrigation works represented in themselves monumental achievements of hydraulic engineering that allowed intensive agriculture in a region that would otherwise be arid and unproductive. Merchants brought exotic products from distant lands through well-established trade routes, creating a vibrant economy where specialized artisans produced decorated pottery, elaborate jewelry, fine textiles, and bronze tools that were exchanged for spices, precious metals, noble woods, and other luxury goods. This material prosperity further fueled the pride of that society, which believed it had reached the apex of human civilization through its own efforts, without needing to recognize the divine source of all the blessings and capabilities they possessed. The Babylonian educational system demonstrated notable sophistication for its time, with specialized schools training scribes in the complex cuneiform writing composed of hundreds of symbols pressed into clay tablets. This system allowed recording detailed laws, commercial transactions, literary texts, astronomical treaties, and religious documents that preserved knowledge through the generations. However, literacy was the privilege of an elite that held disproportionate power over the mass of illiterate workers, creating social tensions that simmered beneath the apparent unity of the Tower project. The divine intervention arrived when God descended to see the city and the tower, declaring that a unified people with a single language would have no restrictions for their intents. The confusion of languages was instantaneous and devastating, transforming an organized society into chaos when masons didn't understand supervisors, mothers didn't comprehend sons, and neighbors looked at each other confused. The inevitable dispersion led groups in different geographical directions, each carrying fragments of Babel's culture, technology, and religious practices, thus fulfilling the original divine commandment to fill the earth and creating the cultural diversity that enriches the global human experience. Babel's legacy resonates powerfully in modern days through our own metaphorical towers, from glass and steel skyscrapers to multinational corporations that accumulate power on obscene scales, technologies promising to overcome human limitations, and social networks where we cultivate carefully managed personal brands. The timeless lesson is not about the dangers of technological development itself, but about the motivation behind our undertakings. When we seek greatness to glorify ourselves instead of the Creator, we repeat Babel's fundamental error. For true greatness comes from humbling ourselves before God, recognizing our dependence on His grace, and using our gifts to serve others and glorify His name instead of our own.
If this journey through the fascinating and disturbing history of the Tower of Babel impacted you deeply, if you recognize the towers of pride that you may be building in your own life, if you want to make a public declaration that you choose humility instead of arrogance, then I invite you now to leave your comment below sharing how this revelation touched your heart and what specific area of your life needs to be surrendered to the Lordship of Christ. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this urgent message about the dangers of pride and the path of true greatness through humility. Subscribe to this channel and activate notifications because we have much more powerful content coming that will challenge, inspire, and transform your understanding of God's Word and how it applies radically to our modern life. The story of Babel is not just about the distant past. It is a mirror that reflects our present condition and an urgent call to choose a different path before it's too late.